Module 5, Part 1. This week we're going to be talking about crisis management, communication, and public relations during a crisis. Part 1 will describe what happens internally as regards communication. So why communications? Well, you think about any incident you've ever heard about or you wanted more information, it requires communication. It's a critical function in crisis management. The dissemination of timely information to the public, officials, and the media can often help with response and recovery efforts. So we need to communicate preparedness, prevention, and mitigation information to reduce the risk of future crises based on what we've learned from the ones we've just gone through. It's important to reflect on the role of messaging in crisis communication. So the first step is to understand and how to appropriately structure and deliver that emergency message. And the language needs to address both the stage and severity of the situation. Think about any crises recently that you've been familiar with, and how did the messaging appear to you? For help with certain types of incidents, we have WHO, the CDC, the OECD, and they've given a lot of information on best practice principles for risk communication. And so the hope is that they reduce the inappropriate actions by the public, as in looting and rioting, and sadly, the summer of 2020, we've seen a lot of that. Deliver clear and consistent messages across all news sources. Ensure that media channels chosen are diverse so that you can reach as wide an audience as possible. You want to be regular in your communications. And you want to be accurate and reflect exact level of risk, as in no drama. And you also need to be flexible so that you can suit any kind of scenario that is presented. So what is the mission of effective communication? The mission, or the mitigation, promotes the implementation of strategies, technologies, and actions to reduce the loss of life. Preparedness, you're communicating messages that encourage and educate those needing to know. During the coronavirus pandemic, how many times have we been told to wear a mask, wash our hands, don't touch our faces, and wash our hands again? The response, provide any necessary notifications if there's going to be bed shortages, blood is needed, warnings, evacuation, and general situational reports. And then finally, recovery. What happens after? What has been the impact on your organization structurally, supplies, resources? What do you need most now? What is the foundation of an effective crisis communication strategy? Remember, it's all about the customer, and the customers are different. You have the patients, you have the family, you have staff being called into work unexpectedly. It's who needs to know what. And leadership commitment, as much as I shared at the end of the last slide deck for Module 4, it's all about leadership, agile, effective leadership. Inclusion of communications in planning and operations. When you look at the planning P, a lot of the topics focus on communication. And good information. Situational awareness is key. You want to timely collect and disseminate information that's needed. You want to be transparent and truthful. Media partnerships. You need to assure accurate information. And don't forget social media. Don't just focus on traditional media sources, but think about YouTube, Twitter, widgets, web-based graphical interfaces, Facebook, any of the many ways social media has come to affect our daily lives, and maybe the only source of information for some people. You should always have a prepared media kit. You want in that kit to have your mission statement, your vision statement, history about your organization, fast facts, how many patients you serve annually, what your outreach is, etc. Any supplemental information, contact sheet, business cards, and your annual schedule. I've given a couple of examples here. You can always zoom in and take a look. And there are many, many examples available on the internet of prepared media kits, depending on the type of organization. So part 1 in developing a communication strategy worksheet is crisis analysis. What is the crisis? Has it been prepared for? What facts do we have about it? What type of crisis is it? What impact has the crisis had? And what steps can we take to mitigate the crisis? Part 2 is your audience analysis. What audiences are involved with the crisis? How are they affected? How does the public view the crisis? Who are the opinion leaders of the public and audiences? Will the opinion leaders provide beneficial information, or should they be avoided? Who will influence the opinion leaders and the various publics? How involved will the media be with this crisis? Is it a high-profile crisis? Is it an internal crisis? How will the credibility and reputation be affected by the crisis? And finally, part 3, strategic and tactical analysis. What are the goals of our organization? What are the goals of our communication? What do we hope to achieve? What is our core message? How can all tactics communicate the core message? What communication channels are available, both immediately and later? How do we convey our core message? And who is the spokesperson in the situation? So there's a lot of communication platforms. Think about the use of hashtags. It identifies messages on a specific topic. Use this in all types of media to help identify your message. Many still rely on TV, but others turn to Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest, Instagram, Snapchat, smartphones. You probably know more resources or sources than myself. So that's part 1 on communications.